أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
صلى الله عليك وعلى آلك وسلم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين. So, going on with the counsels of Imam al-Junayd, أول الواجبات, so the first of obligations, the first thing that you need to concern yourself with as a Muslim. قال أبو القاسم said, إن أول ما يحتاج إليه من عقد الحكمة. So the very first thing that a person who has determined themselves to take upon themselves wisdom, the very first thing that they would need before they're getting into anything, before you study philosophy, before you get into logic, before you get into anything, تعريف المصنوع صانعه, that you define the thing that is created and distinguish that from the creator. فيعرف صفة الخالق من المخلوق, so that you know the attribute, the characteristic of the creator as opposed to the characteristic of the thing that is created. وصفة القديم من المحدث, and the attribute of eternality, infinite eternal nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of God, as opposed to the temporal nature of the creation. فيعرف المربوب ربه والمصنوع صانعه والعبد الضعيف سيده, so that you know the one who is being al-marbub is the one who is underneath the Lord, and rabbahu is the Lord, so the servant of the Lord and the Lord, والمصنوع صانعه, and the thing that is made by the maker, والعبد الضعيف سيده, so and also the weak slave, the weak servant knows the master. فيعبده ويوحده, so they worship them, they worship God and unify God. God is one. ويعظمه, and exalt him. ويعترف بوجوب طاعته, and to basically admit the obligation to worship and to obey Allah. ويذل لدعوته, and to basically humble oneself to the call of God. So with this particular first half of, because the second half is coming up, the first half of this is talking about your approach to the world and to reality. And he will explain that in a second here, but it's basically about knowing who's the one in charge and who's the one underneath the one in charge. A lot of times when we go through life, the way we go through our relationships with our people that are underneath us or people that are above us, especially like at work, for example, or if you're a student in school with your professor or with your teacher, the way that we conduct our relationship with everybody, for a lot of people, it's actually not done in the way that it should be done. You show respect to your boss, but you do not give your boss powers that your boss doesn't have. The fact that you have the job that you have is, yeah, we have the material consequence of you having gone and applied and done your schooling for it and gotten the job and done all these things. And the reason you have it, materially speaking, is that you continue to do your work and the company has money for your position to keep paying you the salary and there is a certain need for you. All of that is fine, but to start focusing on these things and assuming that the reason you have the job is because of these things, that's where you have the problem. The reason you have these things is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God has determined for you to have them. That's why. And that's the meaning of the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, know that if all of creation gathers together to benefit you with something that God did not decree for you to benefit from, they cannot benefit you with it. And know that if all of creation, all of mankind, everybody gathers together to harm you with something that God did not decree for you to be harmed with, know that they can't. Because this is God's domain. All of this is God's. He creates everything. He determines everything. It's up to Him. So where does that come with relation to your ability to, should you just sit at home, for example, if God has determined for me to just eat today, I don't need to do anything. No, that's not what that means. That's a misunderstanding. Your task as a human being is to carry out what is considered to be the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation. The way that He's created the world is that certain things need to take place in order for effects to happen. Do these things have to happen? Is that sequence a must? As far as we're concerned, yes. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not. Allah can create things kun fayakun in an instant. He can satiate you just right now. But He has made the world. It's actually su adab. It's bad manners. It's bad protocol. It's bad understanding to assume that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will just do things for you contrary to how He determined and created the world. And so it's basically to give everything its due right and its due respect without going overboard and going too much. And that's where he says, وَالتَّوْحِيدُ عِلْمُكَ وَإِقْرَارُكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ فَرْدٌ فِي أَوَّلِيَّتِهِ وَأَزَلِيَّتِهِ. Monotheism, from an Islamic perspective, is your knowledge and your assertion and acceptance that Allah, that God Almighty, He's single, He's one, in the beginning and for eternity. لا ثانية معه. There's nothing else, nobody else along with Him. It's just one. وَلَا شَيْءَ يَفْعَلُ فِعْلَهُ. And nothing can do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. Nothing. And this is the beauty of this religion. If you look at, and this in no way is an attack against Christians in any way, but you know, the Prophet ﷺ said that Islam is Deen al-Fitra, that Islam is the religion of that pure initial state of man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with. It's this thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has printed us with, imprinted within our hearts. That when you see something that is detestable to you, you will find that it's detestable in Islam. If you see something that is, you feel that your soul accepts, not your lower self, your soul accepts, that is pure, you'll find that Islam actually encourages these things. If you find something that just doesn't sit well, for example, and again, this is not to attack Christians, but the idea that the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, these three are one, one is three, and the three natures of God, but God is one. And if you tell this to just a simple Bedouin and try to explain to them this, you'll find that they will actually have trouble accepting that. They won't have trouble accepting that God is one. They will have trouble accepting that three is one and one is three. It's a logical contradiction. And there are arguments, I'm not trying to caricature this, but there are arguments for the Trinity, and PhD theses have been written and to basically rationalize the Trinity. Well, the very fact that it needs to be rationalized is indicative of something off about it. That you need to go through a whole bunch of philosophizing to make it make sense. That means there's something missing in the equation there. That God makes His theology so complex that only few people who can write PhD dissertations on it can understand it, which excludes the rest of creation from really knowing God. And so that's what Tawheed is from a Muslim perspective. It's one. There is no complications. لا إله إلا الله. وأن تعلم أن ليس شيء يضر ولا ينفع. And to know that there is nothing that will benefit you or harm you, or يضر harm you ولا ينفع, or benefit you, ولا يعطي ولا يمنع, and nothing can give you or withhold from you, ولا يسقم ولا يبري, or make you sick or cure you, ولا يرفع ولا يضع, or raise you up, elevate you, or bring you down. وَلَا يَخْلُقُ وَلَا يَرْزُقُ, or create, or give sustenance. وَلَا يُمِيتُ وَلَا يُحْيِي, or give death, or give life. غَيْرَهُ جَلَّ جَلَالَهُ, غَيْرُهُ جَلَّ جَلَالَهُ, other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, exalted be He. And so this is really the first obligation that one has to really internalize. That there is nothing in this creation, nothing at all, that can do anything to you other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even when people do things to you, know that it is through the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so what's the idea here? The idea is for you to have the certainty in your heart, which really will deal if you have this understanding truly and the certainty in your heart about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will find that you will be very, very relaxed, and depression won't be a problem for you. A lot of depression, there's depression that's legitimately due to chemical imbalances in the brain. We get that. But there are certain, most of it that's in the world today, though, is not that. It's because you had a set of expectations. You had a particular understanding about your relationship with the world and with Allah with the world and the sequence of cause and effect. And things are not panning out the way that you want them to pan out. Your expectations are not coming. That's because your expectations are problematic to begin with. Your understanding is problematic. And so when you have this settled, and this is what Imam Junayd is saying, before you engage in anything, you need to get this understanding properly. And once you have that, the rest of it, you will find that finally prayer will start to transform you. Your fasting will transform you. Your relationship with everybody will be transformed. And even the animosities and the problems people have with each other and the negative relationships that sometimes can happen, if you reflect on the primary reason for why it happened, it's because you assume that that person was able to do something or had some way of benefiting you or harming you that they actually don't have. That's not within their domain of power. Your relationship is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's really it. With the people, these are incidental. How you treat people will end up reflecting your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how people treat you is actually a reflection of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it's like it comes in the hadith where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He declares that He loves a servant, He tells Jibreel to love that servant, and Jibreel starts to call on the people in the heavens to love that servant, and then people on the earth will have acceptance for that person. That's because your relationship was right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's really what your focus should be about. And that's your first obligation. Your first obligation is about getting right with Allah. Once you get right with Allah, everything else will be fine. And I think the next one, it's jumping into a different topic. So we'll leave it with that just to keep them short. And inshallah in the next episode we'll go into another one of the counsels of Imam Junayd. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم.
حاشا لجودك أن تقنط عاصيا حاشا لجودك أن تقنط عاصيا الفضل أجزل والمواد